Hello everyone, very warm welcome to ITLS Academy. In this lecture, we are going to continue our part of antimicrobial agents. We were discussing types of antibiotics in our previous lectures. In this particular lecture, we will discuss the synthetic antibiotics. Synthetic antimicrobial agents. With the development of antimicrobials, microorganisms have adopted and become resistant to previous antimicrobial agent. Synthetic antimicrobial compounds are divided into topical and systemic agents. Topical agents are called as disinfectants or antiseptics depending on how they are used. They show little selectivity between the microbes and the host. Nevertheless, they are indispensable in hospitals, public health, and at the home. The availability of synthetic antimicrobials and antibiotics, which were discovered almost concurrently, provided major advances in control of bacterial infections. However, the rise in bacterial resistance prompted the search for newer classes of agents. This search provided fluoroquinolones and oxazolidones. The history of antimicrobials begins with the observation of Pasteur and Joubert, who discovered that one type of bacteria could prevent the growth of another. They did not know at the time that the reason one bacterium failed to grow was that the other bacterium was producing an antibiotic. Technically, antibiotics are only those substances that are produced by one microorganism that kill or prevent the growth of another microorganism. Of course, in today's common uses, the term antibiotic is used to refer to almost any drug that attempts to rid your body of a bacterial infection. Antimicrobials include not just antibiotics but synthetically formed compounds as well. The discovery of antimicrobials like penicillin and tetracycline paved the way for better health for millions around the world. The discovery of antimicrobials like penicillin and tetracycline paved the way for better health for millions around the world before penicillin became a viable medical treatment in the early 1940s. No true cure for gonorrhea, strep throat, or pneumonia existed. Patients with infected wounds often had to have a wounded limb removed or face death from infection. Now, most of these infections can be cured easily with a short course of antimicrobials. With the development of antimicrobials, microorganisms have adopted and become resistant to previous antimicrobial agents. Synthetic agents include sulfonamide, cortimazole, quinolines, antivirals, antifungals, anti-cancer drugs, antimalarials, anti-tuberculosis drugs, anti-leprotic and anti-protozoals. Here comes our first synthetic drug, that is sulfonamides. Sulfonamides were introduced by Domag in 1935. It had been shown that a red azodiprontosil had a curative effect on mice infected with beta hemolytic streptococci. It was subsequently found that in vivo protonsil was converted into sulfanilamide. Chemical modifications of the nucleus of sulfanilamide gave compounds with higher antibacterial activity, although this was often accompanied by greater toxicity. Bacteria which are almost always sensitive to sulfonamides include Streptococcus pneumoniae, beta hemolytic streptococci, Escherichia cocci, and Proteus mirabilis. Those almost always resistant include Enterococcus faecalis, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, indole positive Proteus, and Klebsiella. Whereas bacteria showing a marked variation in responses include Streptococcus aureus, Gonococci, Haemophilus influenza, and hospital strains of E. coli and mirabilis. The sulfonamides show a considerable variation in the extent of their absorption into the bloodstream. Sulfadiamidine and sulfadiazine are examples of rapidly absorbed ones, whereas succinyl sulfathiazone and phentyl sulfathiazole are poorly absorbed and are excreted unchanged in the feces. From a clinical point of view, the sulfonamides are extremely useful for the treatment of uncomplicated urinary tract infections caused by E. coli in domiciliary practice. They have also been employed in treating meningococcal meningitis, superficial eye infections, etc. Here is our another synthetic drug, that is diaminopyrimidine derivatives. Small molecule diaminopyrimidine derivatives were shown in 1948 to have an antifolate action. Subsequently, compounds were developed that were highly active against human cells. Example, the use of methotrexate as an anti-cancer agent. Protozoa example, the use of pyrimethamine in malaria, or bacteria example, trimethoprim. Unsubstituted diaminobenzylpyrimidine bind poorly to bacterial dihydrofolate reductase. The introduction of 1, 2, or especially 3 methoxy groups produces a highly selective antibacterial agent. Next is cotrimoxazole. Cotrimoxazole is a mixture of sulfamethoxazole 5 parts and trimethoprim 1 part. The reason for using this combination is based upon in vitro finding that there is a sequential blockage of folic acid synthesis, in which the sulfonamide is a competitive inhibitor of dihydropteroate synthase and trimethoprim inhibits DHFR, that is dihydrofolate reductase. The optimum ratio of the two components may not be achieved in vivo, and arguments continue as to the clinical value of cotrimazole, with May advocating the use of trimethoprim alone. Next is dapsone. Dapsone, that is diamino diphenyl sulfone, is used superficially in the treatment of leprosy. However, because resistance to dapsone is unfortunately now well known, it is recommended that dapsone be used in conjunction with rifampicin and clofamizine. Next is our anti-tubercular drugs. The three standard drugs used in the treatment of tuberculosis were streptomycin, aminosalicylic acid, and isoniazid. The tubercular bacillus rapidly becomes resistant to streptomycin, and the role of PAS was mainly that of preventing this development of resistance. The current approach is to treat tuberculosis in two phases. Isoniazid has no significant effect against organisms other than mycobacteria. It is given orally. An initial phase where a combination of three drugs is used to reduce the bacterial levels as rapidly as possible, and a continuation phase in which a combination of two drugs is employed. Frontline drugs are isoniazid, rifampicin, streptomycin, and ethambutol. Pyrazinamide, which has good meningeal penetration and is thus particularly useful in tubercular meningitis, may be useful in the initial phase to produce a highly bactericidal response. Cross resistance between it, streptomycin, and rifampicin has not been found to occur. When bacterial resistance to these primary agents exists or develops, treatment with the secondary anti-tubercular drugs has to be considered. The latter group comprises capreomycin, cycloserine, some of the newer macrolides, and prothionamides. Prothionamide, pyrazinamide, and ethanomide are like isoniazid derivatives of isonicotinic acids. Next is our Nitrofuran compounds. The nitrofuran group of drugs is based on the finding over 40 years ago that a nitro group in the 5 position of two substituted furans endowed these compounds with antibacterial activity. Many hundreds of such compounds have been synthesized, but only a few are in current therapeutic use. In the most important nitrofurans and azomethane group, that is CH binded by double binded with nitrogen is attached at C2 or the carbon 2 at a nitro group at carbon 5. Less important nitrofurans have a vinyl group at second carbon. Biological activity is lost if the nitro ring is reduced. The CH and double bonded by N linkage undergoes hydrolytic decomposition or CH-CH linkage is oxidized. The nitrofurans show antibacterial activity against a wide spectrum of microorganisms, but furaltadone has now been withdrawn from use because of its toxicity. Itrofuranation is used in the treatment of urinary tract infections. Antibacterial levels are not reached in the blood and the drug is concentrated in the urine. Nitrofurazone is used mainly as a topical agent in the treatment of burns and wounds and also in certain types of ear infections. Furazolidone has a very high activity against most members of the Enterobacteriaceae and has been used in the treatment of diarrhea and gastrointestinal disturbance of bacterial origin. The nitrofurans are believed to be mutagenic. Next comes our 4 quinoline antibacterials. Over 1000 quinolone antibacterial agents have now been synthesized. Nalidixic acid is regarded as the progenitor of the new quinolones. It has been used for several years as a clinically important drug in the treatment of urinary tract infections. Since its clinical introduction, other 4 quinolone antibacterials have been synthesized, some of which show considerably greater antibacterial potency. Nalidixic acid is unusual in that it is active against several different types of gram-negative bacteria, whereas gram-positive organisms are resistant. However, the newer fluoroquinolone derivatives show superior activity against Enterobacteriaceae and Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and their spectrum also includes Staphylococci but not streptococci. The third and most recent developed generation of quinolones has maintained many of the properties of the second generation. Examples are lomifloxacin, suprafloxacin, and temafloxacin. Levofloxacin has a sufficiently long half-life to allow once daily dosing, but adverse photosensitivity reactions are now being recognized. Next is imidazole derivatives. The imidazole comprise a large and diverse group of compounds with properties encompassing antibacterial, antiprotozoal, antifungal, and anti-anthemitic activity. Metronidazole inhibits the growth of pathogenic protozoa. Very low concentrations being effective against the protozoa Trichomonas vaginalis and Amoeba histolytica and Giardia lamblia. It is also used to treat bacterial vaginosis caused by Gardnerella vaginalis given orally. It cures 90 to 100% of sexually transmitted urogenital infections caused by T. vaginalis. Miconazole is used topically but can also be administered by intravenous or intrathecal injection in the treatment of severe systematic or meningeal fungal infections. Newer imidazoles are ketoconazoles, which is used orally for the treatment of systemic fungal infections, but not when there is a central nervous system involvement or where the infection is life threatening. Fluconazole, which is given orally or by intravenous infusion in the treatment of candidiasis and cryptococcal meningitis. Itraconazole is well absorbed when given orally after food. Here comes our antiviral drugs. Several compounds are known that are inhibitory to mammalian viruses in tissue culture, but only a few can be used in the treatment of human viral infections. The main problem is designing and developing antiviral agents is the lack of selective toxicity that is normally possessed by most compounds. Viruses literally take over the machinery of an infected human cell, and thus an antiviral drug must be remarkably selectively toxic if it is to inhibit the viral particle without adversely affecting the human cell. Consequently, in comparison with antibacterial agents, very few inhibitors can be considered as being safe antiviral drugs. Although the situation is improving, possible sites of attack by antiviral agents include prevention of adsorption of a viral particle to the host cell, prevention of the intracellular penetration of the adsorbed virus, and inhibition of protein or nucleic synthesis. Genetic information for viral reproduction resides in its nucleic acid. The viral particle or virion does not possess enzymes necessary for its own replication. After entry into the host cell, the virus uses the enzymes already present or induces the formation of new ones. Viruses replicate by synthesis of their separate components followed by assembly. Next is our amantadines. Amantadine hydrochloride does not prevent adsorption but inhibits viral penetration. It has a very narrow spectrum and is used prophylactically against infections with influenza A virus. It has no paraphylactic value with other types of influenza viruses. Next is methicillin. Methicillin inhibits DNA viruses, particularly vaccinia and variola, but not RNA viruses, and has been used in the prophylaxis of smallpox. It is now little used, especially as, according to the World Health Organization, smallpox has now been eradicated. Nucleoside analogues. Various nucleoside analogues have been developed that inhibit nucleic acid synthesis. Unfortunately, because of its toxicity, idoxuridine is unsuitable for systemic use and it is restricted to topical treatment of herpes infected eyes. Idoxuridine is a thymidine analog which inhibits the utilization of thymidine in the rapid synthesis of DNA that normally occurs in herpes infected cells. Human immunodeficiency virus, that is HIV, is a retrovirus, that is, its RNA is converted in human cells by the enzyme reverse transcriptase to DNA, which is incorporated into the human genome and is responsible for producing new HIV particles. Zidovudine is a structural analog of thymidine. Zidovudine and used to treat AIDS patients. Zidovudine is converted in both infected and uninfected cells to the mono, di, and eventually triphosphate derivatives. 2,3-dioxycytidine or gemcitabine, a nucleoside analog that also inhibits reverse transcription, is more active than zidovudine in vitro and, unlike zidovudine, does not suppress erythropoiesis. DDC is not without toxicity, however, and a severe peripheral neurotoxicity, which is dose related, has been reported. Here comes the interferons. These are the particles that inhibits the spread of bacteria viral infections. Interferon is a low molecular weight protein produced by virus infected cells that itself induces the formation of a second protein inhibiting the transcription of viral mRNA. Interferon is produced by the host cell in response to the virus particles. The viral nucleic and non-viral agents, including synthetic polynucleotides such as polyinosinic acid, polycytidilic acid. There are two types of interferons. Type 1 interferons induces a virus resistant state in human cells, whereas type 2 are more active in inhibiting growth of tumor cells. Let's discuss these two types of interferons in detail. First is type 1 interferon. Type 1 interferons are acid stable and comprise two major classes, that is, leukocyte interferons include LEIFN and IFN-A, released by stimulated leukocytes, and fibroblast interferons, that is, FIFN and IFN beta, released by stimulated fibroblast. Type 2 interferons, these are acid labile and are also known as immune or IFN gamma interferons because they are produced by T lymphocytes in the cellular immune system in response to specific antigens. Disappointingly, low yields of FIFN and LEIFN are achieved from eukaryotic cells. Recently, however, recombinant DNA technology has been employed to produce interferon in prokaryotic cells or bacteria. Here comes our drug combinations. A combination of two antibacterial agents may produce the following responses. Number 1 is synergism, where the joint effect is greater than the sum of the effects of each drug acting alone. Second is additive effect. In the additive effect, the combined effect is equal to the arithmetic sum of the effects of the two individual agents. Third is antagonism or interference, in which there is a lesser effect of the mixture than that of the more potent drug action alone. Drug combinations. There are four possible justifications as to use of antibacterial agents in the combination. The concept of clinical synergism, which may be extremely difficult to demonstrate convincingly even with trimethoprim plus sulfamethoxazole, where true synergism occur in vitro. The optimum ratio of the two components may not always be present in vivo, that is, at the site of infection in a particular tissue. A wider spectrum of cover may be obtained, which may be as desirable as an emergency measure in life-threatening situation or use of treating mixed infections. The emergence of resistant organism may be prevented. A classical example here occur in combined anti-tubercular therapy as earlier. A possible reduction in doses of toxic drug may be achieved. Thank you very much guys for watching this session. Here our types of antibiotics, that is natural and synthetic, both are complete. We will continue our lecture series with our next topic. Thank you very much for watching this session.